In the United States, southern New Jersey has a strange creature in its midst. What is this creature? Is it a human-sized bat? Is it something entirely different? Or is it a demon born from a curse from a stressed-out mother? Join us today on Speaking of Spirits as we discuss the Jersey Devil.
Hello and welcome to Speaking of Spirits. This is your hosts Colleen O'Hara and Tim England.
Whoa, howdy.
And Shelby Bloomquist.
Hello.
Tonight's podcast is on the Jersey Devil. Probably most of you out there in paranormal land have heard of the Jersey Devil, made mention of the Jersey Devil. But I lived not too far from the Pine Barrens for a few years. And, it's one of those places where we got drunked up a lot and would go out there and look for the Jersey Devil. Can't say that we ever saw it. But kind of fascinating. Well, yes, that could, yeah. You get a whole bunch of Navy people out there drinking, and just the way it is. So,
the Jersey Devil may have pictures of you.
I know.
He's sitting over
I'm so glad cell phones weren't around when I was in the service. Because we would all been kicked out. Just saying. So it kind of a fascinating history. Do you want to dive into that?
So there's a couple stories out there that I can find. The most popular is that supposedly it is a cursed 13th child of a lady possibly named Jane Leeds or Mother Leeds. So she had relatively poor family. She had 12 children. That's kind of what you did back then. You just had a lot. And this was around 1735. When she found out she was pregnant with the 13th, she cursed the child. The child is going to be the devil. And I think a lot of pregnant women might feel that, at some point in their pregnancy. But then the story goes that the child was born normal, but quickly began to change into, quote, the devil. And one story says that it flew up and out of the chimney and into the Pine Barrens to wreak havoc, as we know it. And then another story that states that the devil ate the mother, then the rest of the lead kids and the families, the midwife, and then flew out the chimney to wreak havoc. Then there is one more where, actually there's two. There's another speculation that Mother Leeds was a witch and did the do with the devil and created a devil child.
Yeah. A hybrid, if you will.
Yes.
Oh, you like hybrids, huh, Tim?
And then, kind of a side one that doesn't fall too close to anything with Mother Leeds was a young woman fell in love with a British soldier during the Revolutionary War. And the local town, of course, during that time, cursed her. And she gave birth to the cursed child, and that became the Jersey Devil.
Well, the one story where it ate all the Leeds family, that's going to be bogus because there's actually a descendant of the Leeds, and her interview is on the line.
Ooh.
Yeah, so she kind of jokes about the devil, the Jersey Devil, and all that being in her family because her actual maiden name is Leeds. So it's kind of, so she has a lot of Jersey Devil statues and whatnot in her house because it's their claim to fame.
Maybe it's her dad.
Ooh,
Well,
could be.
To go along with that story, there was like a little tailing of the main, where it didn't eat anyone, but in a census or something, her husband, that I can't remember the name of, there is documentation of his will and testament, and only 12 children were named in it. And it's like, but would you really put your little devil child on the testament though too?
What's his name? Lucifer.
Little Lucy over here. He gets nothing.
That Lucifer leads. Okay. Just saying. So, I don't know if you've ever been to the Pine Barrens. It's kind of a cool place. A lot of people, if you've never been to New Jersey, a lot of people think of Jersey as being just an extension of New York City, and it's just pavement and crap. Like, sorry if you live in New York City, but from all of us that live in Idaho, that's kind of the image of, of all of that area. So, most of New Jersey is beautiful. It's absolutely breathtaking. And the Pine Barrens are really, really quite pretty. But it's wild.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure a lot of crime goes down in there. I can imagine it was probably a great place for crime bosses to put the bodies. The Jersey Devil is said to have, so I've seen different descriptions of it.
Yes.
Some of it say it looks like a llama with wings. Some of it say it has a horse's head, long legs with hooves, 2 short front legs, and bat wings. No one knows how tall it is, probably because if you've seen it, you probably have consumed a large amount of alcohol.
Or shrooms.
But there was, so if you go and you start going down rabbit holes of the Jersey Devil, there's pictures that people allegedly have taken while driving, even on the interstate near the Pine Barrens, of this winged creature over to pine trees. So,
probably some guy
it has glowing red eyes and makes loud screeching sounds, kind of like an owl, right? Except for the glowing red eyes. It's very ugly, and people are terrified after seeing it. So we joke, but there are people who have witnessed this, who, like, one gentleman, he witnessed this, and he didn't tell anybody for, like, he was 60 when he finally said, look, I saw this, and here's what I saw. He never told a soul because he was afraid of being ridiculed, and he said, I'm getting older now, might as well say what I saw.
Yeah.
And we see that a lot with different paranormal things, where people, the black-eyed children, people, UFO encounters, people.
Mothman. There's a couple.
Mothman. People, they don't want to say anything because they don't want to be ridiculed. They don't want their church to know. They don't want their crazy cousins to know and they don't want to be ridiculed. And I get that, and we deal with that constantly in the paranormal investigation realm, where
it's easier to be in denial.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Than to say, I have a ghost. People are like, yeah, whatever.
Well, I remember when I was dating my husband, it probably took about, 6 or 7 dates before we even got into that discussion of, hey, so what are your thoughts on this? And you kind of feel the other person out, and they're like, oh. I remember him going, okay, so I had this experience. And I was like, okay, good, we can talk about this. You're not going to think I'm, some crazy lady.
Yeah, it's usually not the lead-in at a singles bar.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I saw the Jersey Devil last night. So that's not normally something you lead with.
What should it be?
Yeah, well, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe you'd miss popularity if you did that.
Yeah.
So, so there's this website called cryptidz.fandom.com. According to this website, in history, Joseph Bonaparte, so he was the elder brother of Napoleon Bonaparte.
Oh.
Yeah, he
Probably
claimed...
a little taller.
Huh?
He's probably a little.
Maybe a little.
top.
I always think of George Costanza
Yes.
on Seinfeld. Yeah.
Mhm.
So he was the elder brother of Napoleon. He claimed to have witnessed the Jersey Devil while hunting on his Bordentown estate around 1820. I had no idea I lived in America.
Yeah.
I know, right?
Well, there's a lot of French people who needed to get out of there,
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
and if you had the pocketbook,
Yeah.
So on a snowy afternoon, Joseph was hunting alone in the woods near his house when he spotted some strange tracks on the ground. They looked like the tracks of a 2-footed donkey. Bonaparte noticed that one foot was slightly larger than the other. The tracks ended abruptly, as if the creature had flown away. He stared at the tracks for a long moment, trying to figure out what the strange agile animal might be. At that moment, Bonaparte heard a strange hissing noise. Turning, he found himself face to face with a large winged creature with a horse-like head and bird-like legs. Astonished and frightened, he froze and stared at the beast, forgetting that he was carrying a rifle. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then the creature hissed at him, beat its wings, and flew away. I wonder if rum was involved.
Yeah.
that sounds like it.
But,
Chicken-like hoofed, one bigger than the other.
Yeah.
Weird.
so, remind me, when we get done discussing this, of the Scout Mountain story. Because it's a real thing that happened to a friend who is also, she's a scientist.
Ooh.
And scared the living crap out of her. And I'll tell you the story. I'm not gonna bring up her name, but I'm gonna tell you the story that happened on Scout Mountain, because it's interesting when the tracks. It's all about the tracks.
That's always been one thing that tracks, and then a forked tail has kind of always been in these different descriptions. The head's been different in some of these, and there's tracks dating back to 1841. Locals heard screams in the forest, and there's some livestock missing and stuff, and of course they followed the tracks, and the tracks are kind of mismarked as well. And oddly enough, one thing that kind of stood out to me when I was looking into this creature, they're still trying to find if this expedition was actually funded and pushed for. Supposedly President Monroe had an expedition sent out in 1812, and it was funded by the U.S. government to collect information and find the creature, dead or alive. And during the expedition, a creature crashed through the roof of where these explorers and investigators were, and this kind of freaked out in the cabin. Supposedly, it was a female Jersey Devil.
Ooh.
Oh, so they've made it now,
Yeah.
or they
crossed with something.
Wow.
Maybe that's why some of these things are different
well,
meanings
yeah,
with different
right?
things, you know.
Sure.
Supposedly there's a claw and tongue somewhere in the archives that they collected during this
In the
expedition.
Smithsonian?
Yo,
Man, there's
We've
so
got
much
to go
stuff in there.
now. We've got to go.
yes.
Yeah, but you can. They say that you can stay in the Natural History Museum, right? Smithsonian Natural History. It would take you something like 25 years to see everything they have.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So,
That's
bananas.
That's a life
By
I'm
that
okay
time,
with.
you'd have to start over because you'd forgot what you saw.
I
Yeah.
know, right?
Yeah.
My memory would be the next day. It'd be like, what the hell did we see yesterday? That's amazing. So, I found this kind of fascinating. During the week of January 16th through the 23rd in 1909, just a 1-week period, newspapers of the time published hundreds of claimed encounters with the Jersey Devil from all over the state. Now, I don't know if that meant there were hundreds of sightings within that week, or during that week they just published hundreds of sightings. That wasn't clear.
I think it was a little bit of both, because one of the sources that I was reading that mentioned this was they kept publishing these stories
Okay.
and these accounts, and so I think they just we're going to do the Jersey Devil week, and I
Okay.
think somewhat. That's what I
That
read.
that could be. So I don't. There were claims that the creature attacked a trolley car.
Oh, yeah.
in Hayden Heights and a social club in Camden, New Jersey. Police in Camden and Bristol, Pennsylvania, supposedly fired on the creature, and it had no effect.
Mm.
Other reports initially concerned unidentified footprints in the snow, but soon the sightings of creatures resembling the Jersey Devil were being reported throughout South Jersey and as far away as Delaware and western Maryland. Widespread newspaper coverage led to a panic throughout the Delaware Valley, prompting a number of schools to close anything to close school,
That's right.
and workers to stay home. During this period, it is rumored that the Philadelphia Zoo posted a $10,000 reward for the creature's dung. The offer prompted a variety of hoaxes, including a kangaroo with artificial wings.
Never mind.
Like, you're not going to figure that out.
Well, that made me kind of question, too, where'd you get the kangaroo in that time?
Well, there's kangaroo in Blackfoot. And I hugged him.
There's
I'm no serious. I got to hug a kangaroo, and he hugged me back. And he's really So I know this isn't paranormal, but I have to tell you, it was one of the highlights of my life was hugging this kangaroo, because you have no idea how soft they are. You know what, like a chinchilla fur feels like? It's softer. I had no idea. And oh my God, and he was boxing with his owner. It was so cool. Yeah, they breed kangaroos in Blackfoot, Idaho, these people. And I got to meet the kangaroos, and he hugged me.
Blackfoot is really weird.
No, there's some odd stuff up there.
Down the road, and all of a sudden
I have
there's
pictures
an
and
emu
everything
in my face. And I was like, ah.
What?
There was a what?
An emu.
Oh, yeah.
Brown ostrich.
Yes.
Yeah. Idaho has been weird. So I'm originally from Montana and Oregon, kind of went back and forth. And I've seen some weird things. You know, out in Oregon they have the, like, wildlife safaris and all that kind of stuff. You know you're going to see these animals. You know where you're going. We were out towards Twin, my husband and I, and we were trying to find a friend's house. And we got lost on these side roads. And, of course, out there it's like fields. All of a sudden we see zebras and camels and all this weird crap out there. And I'm like, wait a minute. Is it like one of those weird vortex kind of things? Like, okay, there's safari animals out here in someone's kind of front yard surrounded by potato fields. You know,
Have you ever heard
that
of
is
Liger
weird.
Town?
Huh?
Have you heard of Liger Town?
Yes.
That was a cool deal.
Well,
kind of
cool.
That was one
Sorta,
of
kinda.
the first things I heard when I moved here, and I was like,
Well, Napoleon
that was a thing?
Bonaparte talked about ligers, right?
Yeah.
Didn't they? So, right? Dynamite. Napoleon Dynamite.
Dynamite.
Whatever.
So that movie
Anyway.
is like, if you're not, I don't understand how that video got so big, because it's hilarious if you're from Idaho.
Oh yeah.
Everywhere else I don't understand, because no one else could understand the
The
happening there?
The references to
I
Preston.
remember I was in probably middle school when it came out, and it was even then at that age, like I was like, what is this about? This is like, and I never want to go to Idaho. I don't see.
I am showing Shelby so that y'all know pictures of the kangaroos in Blackfoot, Idaho.
Oh my god!
And there's even babies. And
I
there's
looked into a permit to get a wallaby just for fun, and I'm like, how? That's a long process. So to have a breeding group of kangaroos in Blackfoot is amazing.
Well, so you can buy them. The females are $10,000.
Oh,
Tip from
chump
this.
change.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
just laying
And did
around.
you know that they can't jump over a cattle panel? So for all of you not in the know, because we're livestock people, cattle panels are 48 inches tall. They cannot jump over that. They jump long, but they can't jump high. So these people used to breed elk, and so they have like these 10-foot high fences, but just in like separating the males and the females of breeding. I'm like, oh my God, can't they jump over? And they go, no, they can't go over. They can stand back on their tail, but they can't spring up and over. Anyway, I digress. I'm sorry. So let's get back onto the Jersey Devil. So there was Commodore Stephen Decatur, was an American naval hero in the early 19th century. According to the legend, he visited Hanover Mill Works to inspect his cannonballs being forged. And Okay. While there, he visited a firing range. I'm sorry, that just came out. Sorry. He visited a firing range and sighted a flying creature flapping its wings. He fired a cannonball directly upon it. It had no effect, and the creature flew away. I can't imagine there was that much accuracy in firing a cannonball.
Well, yeah, you can't. So I played around with some old 50 calibers before.
Oh, yeah.
You're
great, aren't they?
That general area.
Yeah.
Like,
I hope he gets a freaking cannon. So, speaking of cannons, my dad drove onto Edwards Air Force Base and took a cannon, a live cannon.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
did he live?
They saluted him on the way out. He had a general's uniform on.
Oh boy.
And it's an Air Force base, but he had an Army general uniform. And he had a driver. It was a prank. He was a cop at the time, too, I'll tell you what. They saluted him on the way in. He had the cannon hooked to the back of their, because we had this military Jeep, and they saluted him on the way out. And we had a cannon in our front yard until my mom, who was also a cop at the time, said, "Get that thing the hell out of here."
I knew
he
I
took
liked
it back
your
2 weeks
dad.
later. I know, he was
But
awesome. So
The
anyway,
stories I'm getting, I like him even more.
there was the Salem cab attack in 1927. Allegedly, a taxi driver was attacked and killed by the Jersey Devil when he was changing a tire. Witnesses saw they saw the winged animal on top of the cab. I guess they didn't stop to help.
Well, yeah.
I'm like, I'm not helping him. Yeah, there's the devil. I am stopping. In 1960, there were loud scream in Mays Landing. And at Mays Landing, there was a famous nightclub. Like collapsed on people in Mays Landing. It was like, yeah, I remember that. The rabbit holes my mind goes down. Anyway, with no explanation for it, there was all these loud screams in Mays Landing. A couple of years later, in 1972, Mary Ritzer Christensen said she saw the Jersey Devil on Green Tree Road when she was driving. Christensen said that it was tall and had the head of a goat.
That crossbreeding.
In the 80s, there were
Cocaine.
there started to be some strange and explainable. They say strange and explainable deaths in the forest, but I'm thinking they meant unexplainable. In South Jersey, the Jersey Devil apparently killed a family of pigs. Their bodies were scratched and torn apart.
That's horrible.
I know. She laughs.
It's horrible, but a family of
A
pigs.
family of pigs.
Roaming the forest.
She had a leopard on. It was awful.
Sunday picnic.
Fast forward a couple of stories to more recent years. In 2015, David Black of Egg Harbor said he saw a llama walking on Route 9, but then it spread its wings and flew away. Now, look. I'm telling you, there had to have been copious amounts of whiskey consumed during some of these storytelling sessions here. I am from a long line of storytelling people, and all of it involves a lot of whiskey.
Yes.
So I'm just...
Well, and you gotta think, too, in these places, they're not heavily populated. There's not a whole lot to do. And what happens in rural areas,
right.
you drink, you do some questionable substances for a llama to take flight. But just to be near that guy when he saw a llama take flight.
I know.
So,
I hate to make fun of people because shit happens. Weird things do happen because we investigate weird. But I'm sorry. It's like for me, Bigfoot, I can't believe. I just can't. I can't. Not from the science part of me, the scientific part of me that deals with science on a day-to-day for my job. I can't deal with Bigfoot. It just doesn't exist because there's no science.
Non-believer.
Yeah, I know. See, I am the non-believer on that one. But so Jersey Devil, kind of the same thing with me. The whole cryptid thing. But I do believe in Mothman, so that's weird.
See, I can't get behind the Mothman.
Oh, well,
as much.
Because it's like a prediction of it's a forewarning of a disaster. That, to me, I can get behind. Not so much it's the moth dude. It's the forewarning of the disaster. It's like, take heed. There's a message here.
But the Jersey Devil's kind of linked to that, too.
Oh,
there's
drinking and...
Well, no, but the forewarning of things. They think some of these would happen 7 to 13 years apart. And, of course, depending on... your beliefs and stuff, those are either lucky or unlucky numbers. And you'd have all these bad things happen, and you'd see the Jersey Devil, and shit's gonna go down, It's...
So, there's the story from... This was on Fox News. Michael Orphy is his name. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. He recalled traveling down an unpaved road as a South Jersey high school student with his date, a girl named Violet. Suddenly he remembers Violet spotting something unusual coming towards them. He says he gets chills every time I see it. I guess he sketched it. And he believed it to be the Jersey Devil. He hid the sketch away from the children at home when they were little. Orphy, I guess he says he's an educator, a teacher in New Jersey, recalls rolling down the window of his father's car when he sensed there was something out in the woods in the pines. I felt cocky and comfortable about being in the Pine Barrens, but I shouldn't have, he told the Fox host. We heard a rustling, and there was definitely something out in the woods. Suddenly, Violet opened her eyes and mouth wide, and she started pointing to the window because there was a hand coming through the window. And the hand was big, and it had a sharp, almost like a claw, sharp nails coming right at Violet's head. His reaction was to roll the window up. That would be mine, too. I caught the arm in the window, and blood spurted out on her face and on me. I tried to start the car. She's screaming. I get the car started, and I tried to put in what I thought was reverse, but it was actually going forward. At the same moment that he leaped on the front of his father's car, picked up his right arm and shattered the windshield. Orphy adds that the creature finally tumbled off the car after he put the vehicle in reverse, allowing the teenagers a narrow escape from an experience that continues to haunt them worse than 6 decades later.
Oh my goodness.
Dun, dun, dun.
That's creepy.
That is.
That's creepy. So I don't know what it was, but it was creepy.
There's a lot of stories, and some of them, like you said, you gotta kind of wonder what was going on when this happened. But that, you're going out to smooch, and then all of a sudden, just blood's on your face and something's trying to break the windshield.
Yeah.
In 1925, a local farmer reported an animal that kept coming into his chicken coop. What got me of this story was, he's like, I went out a couple times and tried to scare it off. Were you really that scared of it then? Supposedly he shot it. After it stole a number of chickens. This was 1925, so he killed it, took pictures, and talked to over 100 people trying to, do you know what this is? Do you know what this is? No one could identify it. And in his quote, the size of an Airedale dog, so a little bit taller than a lab, with black crinkly hair, 4 webbed toes on the hind feet, which kind of goes different from the hooved feet. It didn't run, but it hopped like a kangaroo. Front quarters higher than its hind, which it crouched as it ran, so it kind of sucked into itself and scurried away or hopped. And then bright yellow eyes, just like a jaw, unlike a canine though. So when you hear things like it jumped on the car and it was scratching and clawing, trying to get in, it has these short little arms trying to reach in.
Like a T-Rex. I don't know. It's so weird how it morphed. It's morphed from year to year to year. I mean...
Crossbreeding.
I know. Dang it.
Maybe Daddy Pig from that family of pigs made a hit or something. Like, okay, the family's just going to disappear and I'm going to run with this devil that I met in the woods. And that's why you get
best sausage ever. So, ta-da!
Okay, it's a bat.
Real big bat.
That's a real big bat.
So, I would like to say that I've been reading comic books longer than real books.
I have no doubt.
Has to be Batman.
Batman.
Just has to.
On his days off.
Yeah. He's
Exercising.
so
High on coke or something.
let me tell you the story that happened here on Scout Mountain. And this was told to me by someone, like I said, she's a scientist. And this gave me pause because knowing this person as I do, and knowing her occupation as I do, she's not one to. I don't even think she believes in paranormal stuff. I mean, she just doesn't. It's not in her realm of scientific brain, you know.
You can't prove it. It's not here.
Right. So she told me the story of what happened to her on. So it would be East Fork Scout Mountain Road, right? Ooh. So real close to where we're recording right now.
Hop, skip, and a jump.
Yep. So if you're from this area, you know that that road gets closed to traffic for the winter, for the winter range of the deer up there. It protects their winter range. So it's closed like less than a half a mile from Mink Creek Road. Yeah. There's a Forest Service gate that closes the road. So the road itself is a Forest Service paved road. And she would take her snowshoes and her skis, and she would put her skis on her back, and she'd snowshoe up to the top of where the campground is at Scout Mountain, and then she'd ski down it, and that would be her exercise for the day.
That's quite the exercise.
Yeah, well, she's a very, very fit individual, as I look at my beer gut. This is not something you will ever catch me doing. And so she said that she did this all the time in the winter. This was a normal occurrence for her. She's not freaked out about it. She'd get up early in the morning. She'd go up there and she'd ski down. It would take her most of the day to get this done. It would be like a big thing, you know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can imagine snowshoeing up there. That's not an easy feat to do. It's a pretty steep ascent up there.
Yeah,
so
when you get to the top, it's a bunch of switchbacks if she's following the road.
Yep.
It's that steep.
It's steep. So there was one where she said she got kind of a later start, and she hadn't neared the top yet, and it was starting to, the sun wasn't setting yet, but it was getting late afternoon, and she figured she better hurry her pace up, or she wasn't going to be able to make the whole road and ski down it. And she said she's got her poles, she's got her skis on her backpack. They're somehow strapped in. She's got her poles and her snowshoes, and she's jogging as fast as she can to get up to the top. And then all of a sudden, she sees tracks on the road in front of her, and they're human, like barefoot tracks, but the size of her snowshoes. And she stops because she goes, I don't know how long I was following the tracks, so I stopped. When my mind registered, there's tracks right next to my tracks. And she looks down at them and she sees footprints as long as her snowshoes. Ooh. And snowshoes are long. For her, she's a tiny lady. She really is very small, but still snowshoes are long. Mm-hmm. Right? So she says, she stops and she turns around and she's looking. And if you're familiar with this road, on one side there's a nice an embankment that goes up, and on the other side there's an embankment that goes straight down to a creek. And she's like, well, where did the tracks come from? That's what got her. She's like, I don't remember seeing them. So she backtracked, and then she noticed where the tracks stopped. And so she looks down the embankment and she looks up the embankment, and they didn't come up or down. They just appeared out of nowhere in fresh snow, because she's the only prints up there, except for the occasional deer or whatever that goes across the road. There's no other prints up there. There's nothing. It's fresh snow. That's why she'd go up there. Every time it was fresh snow, she'd go up. So she'd have this powder day, right, for free, because she didn't have to go to the ski hill. And so she's like, well, that's weird. And so she starts following it. She starts going back up the road again, and she's hoofing it up this road, and then they stop. They just stopped. And she says, again, she looked down the embankment and up the embankment, and there's no other set of tracks. They didn't go anywhere. So for, 300 yards, the tracks were on the road, but there was no beginning, no end. Mm-hmm. And she says, now, a footprint in the snow is always much larger than the actual print because the snow, just the way that snow works, right? When you put an imprint. But she says these things were as long as my snowshoes. Yes. And they were like barefoot human shaped feet. She goes, I couldn't figure out. She goes, now if somebody's playing a prank, first of all, they never know when I'm there because it's so random. It's, she's not like a 9-to-5er. She works on projects, and some days when it's fresh powder, she's going to take the day off and go. So it's like she's, and she says, and who would know that I'm going to be out there to prank? Okay, maybe they're going to prank somebody, but you would find a beginning and an end. Yeah. It's like
regular human tracks leading
right.
Up
it's something. Like the whole, it's not this. You can't hide in the snow. That's why it's so easily. Criminals can be traced to their front door. Police do it all the time because you're going to leave a trace. So she goes, this wasn't the only time it happened.
Oh.
Really?
Yes.
Man, you two are convincing me there's hybrid Sasquatch all over the place.
I'm telling you.
Fly now.
So she and her husband, not too far away from this East Fork Scout Mountain Road is an area that everybody goes snowmobiling up Mink Creek Road. And they decided they wanted to camp overnight in the snow. So they took their snowmobiles and their skis and all their stuff. And they went as far as their sleds could take them up into the woods. And then it got too deep and it was too steep. And so they parked their sled and they decided they had a place in mind where they wanted to camp overnight. They were going to snow camp, have their little tent and insulate it with some snow. And
for all those listening, it sucks.
Yeah, I've done it. It's not that warm, people. I mean, it's not, you can actually stay fairly warm if you have a little fire in the, anyway, I digress. So she and her husband have their snowshoes on and they're going through the trees and her husband's in front, she's in back, and they're single trail and they're going up through the trees trying to get up to this area before the sun sets. She goes, I'm not really paying any attention to my husband, and all of a sudden I smack into the back of him. Because he stopped. And he stopped, and he's not saying anything. But he's looking down in the snow, and there's these prints.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And she goes, I never told him about the prints. She said the prints made me so uneasy on Scout Mountain Road that she put on her skis. She skied out. She didn't even make it to the top that day. Yeah. And she goes, I never went back. That's how spooked she was. She never returned. So never said anything to anybody because she didn't want anybody to ridicule her. Now her husband is like, what the hell? These tracks. And they're up in the aspens and in the conifers where there's no other sleds up there. I mean, it's too steep. And they've been going up this ridge all day to try to get to where they wanted to camp. And he's looking at these tracks and she starts looking around. She goes, once again, no beginning, no end, the tracks were there. She goes, it's like something was beamed down and it walked through the woods and then was beamed up because how can you not leave a trace? She goes, the husband said, yep, we're out. And that was it. He said, we hiked back down, we got on our sleds, we went out. And she goes, we've never been back. So, interesting from a woman that I know to be a scientist who has a rational explanation for everything, who had this experience and will never return to those areas.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. So, I am a total non-believer in Bigfoot, but
there's something with big feet out
not
there.
Well, but even though, so Bigfoot would have to be a mammal, right? Based on all the descriptions. Bigfoot would have to leave a trace coming up or down an embankment.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like he's pogo hopping from state to state. So, what is the explanation?
Apparently he has wings.
So,
teleportation.
No, Idaho Devil.
Oh.
Oh. The Pokey Devil.
That's what we can all call all the hybrids from here on out.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
that's fantastic. Just
don't forget, speaking of spirits, coined that term. It's fascinating. So, that happened to her. These experiences are happening to the people in New Jersey, in the Pine Barrens. And, sometimes these little stories take on a life of their own. They closed schools, they closed businesses, became, the hype went crazy for a while.
It was
but
TikTok
people
before TikTok.
Yes. But people were seeing things, and people were scared of something.
Yeah.
Well,
and you hear there was on one of the shows I watched, I think it was that old show Monster Quest on the History Channel or Discovery Channel, that they actually had like a psychiatrist on there that talked about people believing so much that they don't even, like, they'll pass a polygraph, they'll pass this, they hear a noise, and you're out there thinking, I can't see anything, but I might see something, and you believe you did see that thing. And I think a lot gets skewed out in these wilderness areas. I was up Cherry Springs, which is just past where you just talked about, and you're walking through up there quite a ways, and there's kind of like this rock canyon you go through, and you hear this whoa, 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 and you're just like, I don't know. It was a bird. I had no clue, and I came down there scared shitless. And I'm on the phone with one of my hunting friends, and I'm like, have you ever heard this? And he goes, was it during this time of day and all this? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, oh, that's like a little bird that kind of looked like a grouse. I can't remember the name of it, but it does this weird thing with its breast when it's doing mating calls, kind of like those sage grouse, the
sharp-tailed grouse.
Yeah. And it's going, and it's like, you hear that, and I thought, I'm going to see Bigfoot today. I know it, and my husband's like, we should probably get out of here. And he's kind of skeptical, but he's like, it might be there, it might not. But that day we were convinced we were going to run into Bigfoot out there.
Well, and Shelby's somebody who's, like, spent summer or all summers out in the Centennials, so she's run across grizzly and moose and everything else. So you don't get scared easy.
No. And I'm more scared of range cows than I am of something else,
Those bulls are something.
Oh, yeah. And I've been in areas where, it's mating season for these bears, and you can smell a bear. And you smell them, you see fresh scat, you see all this stuff, and you're like, I really need to watch it. You're heightened, your senses are heightened, and you're like, okay, I need to get out of this. Probably go a few miles the opposite direction. But when you hear things that okay, I know this animal can't make that noise. And you kind of go down through that list of what these things could be. And, back in the 1800s, 1700s, and even the early 1900s, you see these things. Half the people in the Midwest in the early 1900s, they only saw a kangaroo in a book.
Right.
So when they see
it was a drawing. Yeah, it was a pencil sketch. It wasn't a... Right.
Yeah. Even like when you think of the Lewis and Clark expedition, some of the things they described.
Right.
But, then there's the stories and the folklore within the native tribes and all this. So then that was like, okay, so if they've seen it much farther,
right,
much longer ago, it's you're out there and you're just like,
it can play definitely in being alone. Being alone in the woods can really screw with you if you're not used to it. I mean, I grew up in the Sierra Nevadas. I know the animals of the Sierra Nevadas really, really well. And I worked backside of Yosemite. I've worked up in Desolation. I've done all kinds of stuff in the Sierras by myself for weeks by myself. And I was fine, comfortable with that. But I would not be comfortable by myself in the Centennials. Because it wasn't my stomping ground. I don't know it.
Yeah.
And so you get transplants. You got people coming in from ships from England and Italy and coming into the early Americas. And all of a sudden they're tromping around. I mean, we're talking Pine Barrens in the 1700s versus Pine Barrens of today. There's shit that goes on probably in the Pine Barrens of today that's weird. But in the 1700s... it was wild and woolly. People forget that it didn't look like what it looked like now. Yeah. It was thick, brushy. I mean, it wasn't... Yeah, we've lost the ability to think back of what things look like. And people were terrified of everything in the woods.
One of the biggest, I don't know the right word for it, was when I was working out in those places like the Centennials and on public lands, and you'd run into people that were camping out there fighting themselves, or these people, I'd meet people from Brazil out in an area that's like, this is not a jungle, you know, or somewhere that they're remotely used to. And the biggest, I heard this and I don't know what it was a fox scream.
Oh, every episode of Midnight Summer, I think that's what it's called. Midsummer's Murders.
Yes.
Every episode has a screaming fox in it.
So that is one thing the English knew when they came over here.
Yes.
Oh, that's a fox.
That's a fox. That's
but even our badgers are different. Mm-hmm. So can you imagine comparing their badgers to ours, seeing that? And bears back then, they were hunted almost to extinction for a long, long time in Europe. You come here and you have these, you know, croc and boon bears and these big things come. The fur trappers coming over here. You know, our beavers are much bigger. It's just mind-boggling to think of what they felt during that time. Just, I'm in wonder. You know, that is one thing with the Jersey Devil. It was they had even called it a Jabberwocky from Alice in Wonderland.
Oh,
there was a time.
When was Alice in Wonderland written then?
I think 1800 something.
Was it? He's going to Google it because he's on his phone. So, I mean, what I like about these kind of topics is that there's actually groups, paranormal groups, they're more crypto groups. Their sole thing, they're not paranormal investigators. They don't go to haunted homes and try to work with people in that, is to find this Jersey Devil. They want to find it, and every weekend they're out there. You know? So,
to them.
Again, that's why I have such a hard time with the whole Bigfoot thing, because people are searching for this every single day. And 1865, Alice in Wonderland. Thank you. So, I have no idea that's where that term came from.
I don't know if it came from there, but one of the...
Jabberwocky? I thought that was a Star Wars thing.
I think, isn't that Jabba the Hutt?
Well, the Jabberwockies were the dudes in the robes.
Yeah.
With little red light things.
Oh.
Right?
Okay. What was...
Some Star Wars guy's going to get on me and say, hey,
I
you're
know.
wrong, Tim.
But I think the Jabberwocky was the monster Alice had to fight.
Oh. See, that book scared the hell out of me when I was a little girl. I didn't like it.
The description is very similar of the Jabberwocky compared to the Jersey Devil.
Okay. Well, I guess when your rational brain is trying to describe what you saw, you use something that everybody can relate to. So you'd say, oh, you know that thing in Alice in Wonderland? It's a look like that. Probably didn't look anything like that, but you're trying to describe it.
The whole time it was a llama with wings.
Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah. So, anyway, I thought this was a fascinating topic. If you have seen the Jersey Devil, I would love for you to message us. Our Facebook page is Pocatello Paranormal Research. Send us a message. Let us know what topics you want to hear, and we will research them to death.
Or weird pictures. Weird pictures would be good, too.
Yes. Well,
Jersey Devil.
Let's clarify what pictures we're asking for.
Jersey Devil type things. Hybrid Sasquatches.
Yes. Yeah, anything Sasquatchish. Yes, that's cool. So I have to tell you this one last story. Okay, I told you, from storytellers. So I'm up for work, and I'm up in Coeur d'Alene, and I have to spend a week up there. And I'm with all these, brainiac science people, because that's the kind of people I work with. I'm like the dumbed down version of all these people I work with. I'm the lowest IQ of all these people. And they can tell, because I actually got them to start doing squatch screamings by the third day. We're all going, woo! Driving through the woods of Coeur d'Alene. They thought it was hilarious. I thought it was hilarious that I could get these people with like 500 IQs to do a squatch whoops in the woods. So anyway, I had a lot of fun. That whole week was unforgettable for me.
There's people out there that anytime I go for a hike or just go exploring with my friend, he's out there calling.
Yeah.
And he won't warn you all the time. And so you're just admiring the view. And
woo!
Whoa! And you're just like, oh my God. He actually got a response one time. And I know it was probably a hunter out there.
Yeah.
But I just want to see the faces of these people out there enjoying their hikes like these transplants.
Right.
And all of a sudden, whoop-woo, whoop-woo, out there. And we're going to die. This is how
We're gonna die.
This is my day. My ticket's up.
Again, we're speaking of spirits. I hope that you enjoyed this topic. And we look forward to bringing our podcast to you next time. And we're out.
Woo.
You've been listening to Speaking of Spirits, powered by Pocatello Paranormal Research in Pocatello, Idaho. Thank you for joining us today. We're glad you could be here. If you're enjoying the podcast, please do us a favor and go to whatever platform you are listening to the podcast on and give us a review. We prefer the 5-star reviews. This helps us know how we're doing, and it helps others to find the podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you on our next podcast.
Ha 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 ha!